everyone. Welcome to today's Fireside Chat, where we'll be talking about the trend toward digitization in the dealer world. It's wonderful to have so many of our customers here and also so many new faces. We really appreciate you taking the time out today to join us and appreciate it a lot. We have two very exciting speakers with us today, our CEO, Matt Harris, and Ron Slee, an industry thought leader and very well known in the industry, probably does not need an introduction. And so we will also be joined by my colleague, Matt Hasty, who doesn't have his picture showing. He is here for technical support. So in case you have anything, any issues or anything, feel free to reach out to him. His email is right there in the tile. During the chat, we'll have, during the session today, we'll have the chat functionality disabled, just because that's the functionality of a webinar. However, we strongly want and recommend that you ask questions and provide comments. And so you can do that through the Q&A functionality down at the bottom towards the left side. We have saved time at the end to talk through some of the questions and comments. And so really look forward to hearing from you. Today, we will be talking about a few topics. I'm sure this is not all that we'll cover, but the first one will be defining digitization. Why is this so important? What are the risks and rewards? And then, of course, we will have time for the Q&A. We will be recording today's session and we'll share it out. We'll send out an email tomorrow in case you want to watch it again or forward to one of your colleagues. And before I turn it over to Matt and Ron to introduce themselves and just to get the conversation going, I am going to launch a poll. Okay. Just to get an idea of where we all stand on this very hot topic of digitization. So I'll give everyone a few minutes to take the poll. Excited to see the results. I'll share them out in a minute or two. All right, go ahead and end the poll. Let's see the results here. So definitely. Okay, so when someone mentions digitization, do you know what this means? Definitely 35%, sort of at 45%, and not so much 20%. Okay, so we're not in too bad a shape here. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen, and so we can turn it over to Matt and Ron to introduce themselves and get this exciting chat going. Matt, would you like to?
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. Thanks, Julia. I'm Matt Harris. I'm the CEO of Digitize Software. Really looking forward to this time with everybody and talking about this important topic. And really, especially proud to be sharing the same stage, so to speak, with Ron, an industry luminary who can introduce himself. But thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Don't set me up too much. I'm also glad to be here to talk about this subject. I think it's the poll indicated to some degree where we're at with digitization. So we need more discussions like this, more webinars like this, more interaction on this particular subject. I started in the industry in 1969 with Caterpillar dealers. Have been involved in all of the operational aspects of the business. We have a employee development business called Learning Without Scars, which is aimed at the capital goods industries in helping people get better at what they do. Digitization in this particular subject is near and dear to my heart, so that's why I was really pleased when Julia and Matt reached out so that we could have this kind of a chat.
Wonderful. Thank you, Ron. Thank you, Matt. All right, so the title of our fireside chat is Digitize or Die, which is daunting, right? So why, Matt, we'll just start with you. So why do you think digitization is so important for dealerships? And specifically, what do you think what does digitization mean to you?
Yeah, I mean, it's important because it's increasingly a complex world and a complex competitive set. And no longer is an individual dealer just competing with other people like them, other businesses like them in their region, but there are now suddenly other types of businesses who are trying to get their business, trying to win their customers, and using a variety of digital means to do so. So we say digitize or die because that is a significant trend in the industry overall, those digitized businesses versus those who aren't. You know, the benefits of digitization really, I sort of listed them in three major categories. First is the digitization of customer engagement. Research tells us that in the sales process, many complex sales process, most of the engagement of a customer, of a client of yours, is done well before they talk to a single salesperson. And so customers are seeking out information-rich environments and engagement well before they walk into your dealership. So enabling the customer with that information and really giving the information so that they can engage with you, purchase from you when they come into a dealer, or even without coming into a dealer. That's the model of the future, and it's really the way people want to buy. And the best business models, we think, and why we think a lot of you have some great advantages, is that, you know, are these hybrid business models that combine a physical location with a fantastic digital and e-commerce capabilities. The other component of digitization is not just the customer engagement, but of operational workflows. Digitization can really streamline the steps that it takes your businesses to get to a sale, or to really focus on what we call this quote to cash workflow, which is oh so critical. Effective digitization can make quoting faster, and configuration and pricing, especially of complex equipment or complex service agreements, can make that much faster. It can make win rates higher. It can make the processing of orders much faster, and then ultimately invoicing going out faster. So that shrinks that process of quote to cash, which is also important to all of you. And then the final component of this all is, as these customer engagements are digitized and operational workflows are digitized, there's a magnificent trove of data that then can be mined and consumed to actually drive decision making. So data on past purchases informs future purchases. Data on service events can also then inform potential rental opportunities. Consistent rental data then informs sales. And so this data then can be mined, and now with some of the benefits of AI, can really be, you can really get into the use of unstructured data. There's a fantastic wealth of opportunity there. So that's just how I think about it and the benefits. Ron?
Let me piggyback rather than repeat a lot of that, but let's go back in history somewhat. We're in a world that is transitioning much more rapidly today than ever before. And it's not that long ago we were talking about quote data processing, and then that moved to information transactions, IT, and now with artificial intelligence and data analytics, we're at the threshold of being able to use data, as long as it's accurate, and transition it into information that we can employ in your business. For instance, one of the things that's been troubling me for some time is what I call customer retention. In the different departments that you're operating, equipment, parts, service, rentals, even in the form of finance, we're in a situation where these transactions are completely different. So the quality of the data becomes critical, and at the moment, I'm afraid we don't have very good quality of data. We've got too many people in the kitchen mixing things up. The other thing that leads us to is, on customer retention, depending on which department you're in and depending on your business, I've seen dealers where they're churning 25 to 75% of their customers annually without knowing it. We're all busy. We all have revenue streams. The revenue's going up. Your competitor number of people, number of distribution points is going down in the supply chain. which masks the seriousness of this issue. Then capturing the data, customer likes, dislikes, customer relationships, that's people driven. But today, the customer doesn't need the dealer to come with a spec sheet. They know the equipment, they know the products, they know the repair technique, probably better than many of the folks that are out there covering the customer. The other side of that equation is with market coverage models that we've got in the industry, we probably don't touch half of the people that have equipment that's working in the field. So we're at the threshold where people can come forward. The barrier to entry is very different today. So you're going to see people sprouting up as fresh competitors. Uber, like for technicians, for repair and maintenance, multi-source cross references for parts, telematics with sensors on equipment that's brand independent. There's so many tools today that if you don't put your arms around it, I'm afraid you will become extinct. And that also looks at our organization. We don't have a structure where there's chief technology officers in very many places. We don't have information officers. We've got data processors. We've got programmers rather than analysts. So there's an awful lot going on here. And I sincerely believe, I've been talking about new realities for the last 50 years of my career. But as time passes, the acceleration is getting almost too much to keep up with.
Thank you, Ron. Well, I love both of your takes on this. And so we kind of covered this during the first question, but just very pointedly, why is digitization so important? And Matt, maybe you can start off with this question.
Yeah, and I'll give a 2 or 3 anecdotes here. In some of the discussions that I've had with a variety of dealerships and different networks, there was one dealer who I thought made a very interesting sort of observation, or had a very realistic fear. And it's in the premise of the landscape is becoming much, much, much more complex with digitization. As soon as that dealer sold a piece of equipment, they were instantly in competition with all these different, newly enabled competitors who were trying to sell parts to that customer. And it used to be that, it was that customer would have been a reliable source of, ongoing parts and service, which is, we know, an important part of any dealer business. But now suddenly the access to parts is really, comes from a variety of different sources, all of them enabled through digital means. And so in that type of environment, and that's not just for parts or in service, as Ron mentioned, but the marketplace for rental equipment, both heavy and general rents, those marketplaces are developing all the time. So dealers are not just competing against dealers within their region, but there's all this, extra regional competition that is coming on here from in an omni-channel way, from different approaches. So it's digitizing whether we want to or not. The other component that I thought was really, really interesting is that there's a McKinsey research that we recently saw that McKinsey surveyed equipment dealers on what your kind of fears were and what the challenge of the industry were. The number one fear that was what was noted by all dealers and by a large magnitude was being disintermediated by OEMs who are going direct to customers with their own digital means. And so even the relationship between OEM partners of dealerships is something that is evolving rapidly as well, and that's a fear of dealerships. Finally, the last another anecdote I got from a very, very successful dealer on the East Coast in the New York area. And they talked about a fantastically smart strategy where they were really pushing into a general rents business, not only on the basis of growth of general rents, but as a way to introduce their business to new customers. The thought being that many customers won't start a relationship just by buying a new piece of equipment, but starting smaller with a form of a rental of equipment, be it small or large, was a great place to start. And then introducing that customer to that business and then growing from there. It's a magnificently smart strategy, I thought, but it's digitization that makes it happen. It's the digitization and understanding that there's a customer that we now have. And now with that customer, we can understand more about them and what their needs may be in the future for either further rental opportunities or equipment opportunities leading to parts and service. That is what the promise of digitization. So anyway, a few anecdotes that I think are really important to us right now and what we're hearing from you all. Ron.
It becomes really interesting if you look at market coverage, just to further the discussion that Matt initiated. Back in 1980, I think was the right year, might have been 90, Caterpillar created the storefront and put it forward for all dealers to use. So there was a uniform brand identity in front and connected everybody's business system to that so that the customer could come in and could check availability, could check price. I don't think that there's a Caterpillar dealer on the planet, and I would love to be proven wrong, that has 25% of their parts business going through that kind of a portal. Yet there are businesses, and Amazon has shown us how to do this, who rely completely on an internet portal for all of their business. So to expand on what Matt's talking about, we're not really known. We're in the equipment business, we're in the mining industry, we're in forestry, we're in construction, we're road building, whatever. The customer of the machine, the man who bought the, or woman who bought the machine, they're not buying a machine anymore, they're buying a job. They're buying an effective use, a mile of road, a ton of material, whatever it might be. And we haven't adapted our supply chain to that reality. We have to give the customer tools that allow them to have the confidence and the faith and the trust in us that we can look after their equipment remotely. Let them just concentrate on doing the job. Make money with the use of that machine, not worry about maintaining that machine. And then one little add-on to that, or an adjunct to that, that's more troubling from my perspective. Geography comes into play. If we look at the percentage of the machine hours that are being put on rental machines, Europe, Asia, and North America are very different. In North America, we've got big geographies. So now we're starting to look at multi-point distribution channels where I got nodes all over, because all of Europe fits in the province of Quebec. So when I'm looking at distances in Quebec or in Canada or in Texas, it's huge. Australia is similar. There's big gaps of land that we have to deal with. So we can't, it's not a one size fits all anymore. It's a one size fits one. And the only way we can do that is with systems, with intelligence. And that's where data analytics and artificial intelligence come really into the forefront from my perspective.
Yeah, I'd have to agree on that. I mean, AI is huge, as we all know, and so it's just becoming more and more important. I'd like to transition to, and it's related to why digitization is so important, but you know, what are the risks, if not, and then or the rewards? And Matt, maybe you can share a bit on this.
Yeah, I mean, I think the rewards. I want to go back to a point that Ron started with at the beginning of the discussion, and it's really a revolutionary concept that he takes credit for, that I latched on to, and it's a new concept, I think, for the dealership industry in general, and it's this concept of customer churn. And I think it's a reasonably new concept to the industry of equipment dealers and dealerships in general. And the definition of churn is really a churned customer is a customer with whom a dealer has not done business in a given year. And it's something that in the software industry and digital industries, one thinks of quite a lot, right? Churned customers are obviously really bad customers. And Ron had the vision of introducing this into the concept of the dealer business model. The data that we heard here in terms of customer churn that dealerships are experiencing is that the average dealership is churning about 5% of their customers every month, which on the one hand doesn't sound that bad, but over a year, that's 60% of the customers. That means that in a given dealership, 60% of their customers won't do business with them next year, right? Think about that. 60% of your customers aren't going to do business with you next year. That makes it really hard to grow, right? It's really hard to grow if that's what's happening. And so the concept of digitization then, in that context really makes a difference in the connection of not only what we sold a given customer, but how to then turn that sale into a continuous relationship that results in services and parts and rental, thereafter on a continuum. Churn is the absolute death toll to any kind of growth initiative that a business may have, whatever the business. And really the power of digitization is that it enables us all to have continue with that relationship with the customer beyond that once every 5, 7, or 10 year engagement. So that's what's really, I think, clearly the reward is that the enabler to growth. The risk, I think, is that with any technical, new technical adoption or transformation, there are clearly the risks of change management and the resistance or the ways of doing things new versus old. Change management is a challenge in any industry, and there's science and books on change management. The way though the best way to enable change management is starting small but working towards growth. So the risk being in this case, taking an all or nothing approach means that change management has got to be all or nothing as well, and that makes it harder just to do things, try things, and innovate and digitize in certain ways. Finding the right platforms or partners who can start in an area and then enable easy growth allows a lot of experimentation, process changes, and also allows the change management process to work very effectively. There are great examples of customers that we work with who, over years and multiple phases, have really nailed that digitization process and extended it to multiple parts of their business, and have exceptionally managed through change with their teams and with their own clients as well. And so I think that component of it is really important to think about.
It opens up a huge subject, and not just for us, it's all sectors of society. And that what Harvard Business Review back in the 80s had a research product. They have cheap researchers in the form of students, and they looked at the industrial distribution business and found that if you can increase customer retention by 5 percentage points, from 60 to 65, 70 to 75, you can increase the profitability in the industrial distribution channel, that's us, by 45%. And that's a stunning number. There's nothing you can do in your business that has anywhere near that impact. The churning that Matt mentioned about a short bit ago is very troublesome. But what's worse from my perspective is we don't know what's happening. We don't get any early warning systems. We've got data all over the place, but we get lousy information. We have 51 people that are writing for us on blogs and podcasts and various things. This past week, Debbie Frakes from Winsby put something out relative to transaction sizes. Buying pattern changes are signals for us. We don't have anybody paying attention to that typically. We've got smart people in dealerships, very successful businesses, leading edge technology in many respects, rebuild centers, warehousing, whatever. There's a lot going on. Who's looking after the customer? You know, when Matt introduced the point that this company in the Northeast, this rental, are going to use this as a means of finding new customers, why don't we have a sales territory where the people touch only people that don't have our brands? There's certain companies in America this past day started about 10, 15 years ago. They don't pay commission to an equipment salesman if they replace the brand with their own brand. They only pay a commission if they replace it with a competitive brand. We have to look at the world through different eyes. We've got way too many sacred cows. And let me close it this way. We don't have enough people doing the job. We've got too much done by too few. As a result of that, we're missing a lot of things. Too many people are working in the business, not on the business. I want to turn the organization upside down. I want to have the people that touch the customers at the top of the pyramid, and everybody else supports them. Now, the people that are touching the customer, that should also be systems, text messages. Landlines are almost dead. It's cell phones only. Data, when I started on the internet, it was 1971, and we were happy like the devil when we got 30 baud as our speed. Imagine that today. So this risk reward, I think that's a misnomer today. Adapt, adjust, get into the new reality, or you're done. I'm serious as a heart attack. Over the next 10 years, the generational transition that hasn't happened yet, where we've got a lot of people that have overstayed their expiration date by 10 years, including me. The younger people are hungry. They want to make changes. Why did we not have the storefront from Caterpillar get up to 50, 60%? Why does a technician on the shop floor not order parts directly on a computer system? There's some very simple things that I call sacred cows. Shoot the darn things, kill them. Let's move on and get on to better things.
Thank you, Ron. I really love that you both focused or emphasized churn, because as we all know, it's much more expensive to gain new customers than it is to keep existing ones. And also because of the focus just in general on delighting customers and customer experience. I think it's just very relevant. And I kind of laughed when you said that landlines are dead. And you have to text people. So I'm actually, if you manage younger employees, you'll find that even email is not even a medium anymore that that younger folks use. So I thought that was funny. So we covered what we kind of set out to do, but we did save. We're actually right on time. We did save about 15 minutes for questions and comments, and so. I have seen some come in. If you look at the bottom of your screen on the Q&A, please do submit those if you haven't, so we can continue this lively conversation and also hear if it's not necessarily have to be a question or just a comment.
Well, that's coming in, Julie. Let me expand on something a little bit. I don't think we're in the business today. We haven't realized it yet, but we're not in the business of selling parts, labor hours, machines, renting hours. We're in the business of subscriptions, where we're going to be offering services to keep the machine running such that the customer doesn't have to worry about that. You've almost got completely autonomous machines in mine sites, open pit particularly, where you don't have operators anywhere. Agriculture on large scale, Australia, Brazil, Canada, America, where we've got 20, 40, 80,000 acre farms. That's all being done without an operator in the machine, where we're sensing, what moisture content is in the ground, what's the chemical makeup, what's the fertilization that I want to put around that seed, and how deep does it need to go? We've got remarkable tools. We're not using them. And that's going to catch us. One of our contributors is Ed Gordon. He wrote a book maybe 15 years ago called Job Shock. In it, he said that by 2030, 80% of the American workforce would not have the skills to be able to be employable. Ed's a good friend of mine. I tell him he's wrong. He says, okay, when do you want to say it's going to happen? I said 2040. He said, okay, what are we going to do as a society with that? And this is coming up everywhere. The equipment is being used. My wife has got a washer dryer from a brand. We can do all the diagnostic. It talks to us. We can make adjustments in the machine without anybody being near us. And Matt started out this morning. The customer knows what they want before they come near us. The barrier of entry 20 years ago was we knew the specs. Today, the customer knows them better than we do. Cross-reference, standard times, life cycle information. Darren, it's unbelievable the power of the stuff we got in front of us. All we need to do is reach forward and grab it.
Agreed. So Ron, I will go ahead, and I think this is related to something that you just mentioned. So this is from Bob Lambert. Why do you think this has happened? What will the thing that has happened to me, what will be the thing that has to happen to make senior managers understand this change?
Boy, if I had the answer to that one, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing. It's change. It's change. It's, you know, the teasing comment I make to people is go home tonight and tell your partner you're going to sleep on the other side of the bed. That's change. So now we bring tools to, and I've been a consultant for 50 years, and I've been in this industry all around the world doing this, training everywhere, 25,000 students. And there's a group of people that are thought leaders. And we got to find who they are. We got to identify those champions. We got to give them a leash. That's blessedly, that's what happened to me. I came into the company and I was put into places wherever there was a problem. And as long as I was able to solve the problem, they kept doing it. And talk about an opportunity for a young person coming into business. What happens today? The onboarding process, we hire you for a job. Hiring is one of the most difficult aspects of anybody's job. Firing's easy. I've never fired anybody in my life. They always fire themselves. Hiring, that's a different gig. So I would like to be able to say I can change top management, but let me give you a little anecdote. Lou Gerstner left McKinsey to take over IBM as chairman. His first meeting with his direct reports, he asked them to tell him their top 3 customers. He went around the room. Nobody was able to do it. The meeting was killed. He said, we'll be back in a week. I want those 3 names. They were back in a week. He got the 3 names and then he left the business. He went and traveled for 3 to 6 months and visited every single one of those customers and asked them, what do they want? What do they need? We've seen commercials in different geographies that you know, we've got to go visit our customers. When's the last time all of these leaders have been out talking to customers that aren't their friends? I used to do sales reviews, sales territory reviews. I travel with a salesman and they've got it set up. They know who they're going to visit for the day, but I've got a customer list. And I say, well, let's go see this guy. And it's amazing the knowledge that they have of the customers in their territory. Churn is caused because we do not have a relationship, number 1. Number 2, we don't have the data, the information that tells us that something's changed. We become fat, dumb, and happy, unfortunately. And I'm happy. I'd like to think I'm not dumb. I'm in the first category, though. We've got to get leadership making change, adjusting their thinking, adapting to this new reality. It's serious and it's going to accelerate. If we don't catch up soon, we're dead meat.
Exactly. Digitize or die. I'd like to move on to the next question. So what specific areas in a dealership are you seeing or anticipate AI being leveraged to gain the greatest efficiencies? I don't know if Matt, you want to touch on this or
yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I'll give it a shot. And I think there's, you know, there are quite a few areas. You know, one that's been spoken of for a while now is the, and this is in equipment or industrial technologies in general, is the use of AI to predict, I would say, type of mechanical failures in the future and sort of ward those off. I think that is an approach. I think some of the data models for that have proven to be a little bit less reliable than we would have liked, given the wide variety of operating parameters that equipment work in. And so, so while that's been I would say a popular sort of example to use, I'm not sure that's going to perhaps be the most successful. Some of the things that we are seeing be really, really successful are sort of our large language model based AI services that are built relying upon unstructured data. And so we're seeing now AI be able to create service manuals and service documentation and service processes as just by following an example of somebody who's doing that and automating that process of following a experienced service technician who is working on a particular piece of equipment, and then the AI converts that into really easy to follow new training materials or service documentation. Those are the types of things that we're seeing more of. And additionally, in support, being able to use AI and consuming a lot of technical documentation and even engineering documentation, and having that be the framework from which a support model is being built. And so that if a customer has a particular question about something, the AI consumes that information and actually gets the customer, either gives the customer the answer or at least starts to give them directionally where to go. We've seen some information and some data that shows us that AI used in support environments for customer support, technical support, improves the productivity of support teams by almost a day a week. And so, which is a fantastic outcome. If any of us could get 20% more productivity out of a technical support team, I think we'd all be cheering. It's better service for customers. It's better productivity for our own business. So I think that those are some interesting areas that we're seeing, here and now, where the results have been demonstrated consistently and across different kinds of businesses, different kinds of dealerships.
And let me pick up on that, Julia. In our Learning Without Scars business, it's employee development, it's classes, it's assessments of skills. We're using artificial intelligence for audio tracks. We're using it for closed captioning, and we're creating custom characters and synchronization of voice. And we can do all of our classes next year. We'll have them in 130 different languages. So come backwards. BMW put out something in the 90s called augmented reality, where a man goes up to a vehicle, the hood is on the car up, he's got his toolbox beside, he puts on a pair of glasses, and he looks at the engine compartment. Hit start, and here come the instructions. Go further with data analytics and artificial intelligence, with lifecycle management, with sensors everywhere on the machines, with telematics so that I can get that instantaneously. I can tell the customer, shut that machine down. I can come back to the customer and say, hey, you've been idling on that machine for 5 hours. What's going on? I can start intervening with the customer to help them make more money. That's what we're here for. I was blessed to meet Bill Blackie when he was the chairman of Caterpillar, a short Scot who put himself through school at Bradley by delivering milk. And he's the guy that created the absorption model. And what he pounded at me was, it isn't about the profitability in parts and service. It's about constraining costs and inventory investment, et cetera. Now look at the world today. We've just seen a world change dramatically from roughly 2% federal funds right here to 5.5%, and my bet is it'll be 6% next year. You have to change your business to adapt to the reality. What's the first thing we always do when we run into an expense problem? Get rid of people. That's the last thing we should be doing. We need brains. We don't need brawn anymore. We need thoughtful people that are prepared to fail. In order to get ahead in this world, we're going to make mistakes, big time. But data analytics, artificial intelligence, wow. I was at university in the 60s. I was teaching university in the 60s. It's incredible what's available today. In education, it's incredible. Look at your machines. We didn't have high pressure hose 50 years ago. We can operate the machine completely remotely without anybody in the operation. Look at autonomous machines in mine sites. I think the folks in Australia will relate to that out the Perth way easily. It's absolutely wonderful, but it's scary as hell.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree with that. It's going to be really, really interesting to see how what evolves. But I think it's just so great. It's a great time to be alive in terms of technology. There's
Julia, let me interrupt you for a second. What's really interesting, 20 years from now, people will be looking back at this year as the good old days.
yeah,
It
yeah,
always happens, you know. We're in the midst of the maelstrom. We got to get up in the helicopter and look at it objectively, which we rarely do.
right, right. We've got a couple more questions. I think we'll just get one more quickly, and then we'll need to wrap it up. Just so you know, at the end, when we wrap it up, we are going to pop up a slide with Matt's contact information and Ron's, and then also the link to our user conference. If you are one of our beloved customers and you haven't registered, please do so. So I'll just say the last question, which is what are dealers how are dealers using enterprise software to help manage worker shortages? Okay. Matt, do you want to give your take on this?
Yeah, I think it's two ways. And I was gonna, reference it back. What's going to convince people that you have to do this? I think there's, without it, it's going to get really hard to hire people. I think there's some people who in the industry, as we try to hire salespeople or service technicians or what have you, they won't, new people coming into the business will expect there to be digital tools. And if there aren't digital tools, if they're, if it's paper or even just standalone spreadsheets or green screen stuff, right? If that is a detractor to bringing in the type of talent that Ron is really eloquently saying and demanding that we need. And so I think, if without the digital tools, it just won't get access to people. The fundamental component of it is that with the right people in these digital tools, it's just a productivity enabler. It's what we've seen in our tools and others like ours is that a salesperson becomes meaningfully more productive, 15% more productive, because their quoting process is automated versus having to pick parts and things out of a bill of materials or a parts book and align that with pricing. It's all done for them, and so they can accurately create a quote more quickly. That quote then is approved, and their win rates go up. And then the process of processing that quote or that order through the system completely is expedited too. So it just makes the people on our teams a lot more productive in what they do.
Let me just introduce something that's a new step in education. It's not that new. It started in 1980, called AVID, which stands for Advancement via Individual Determination. It's starting in middle schools across America now, where the children are being taught not to get a score on an exam. They're taught to think critically. They're taught to have analytical skills. They're taught to have communication skills, which over the last 25 years has been degraded dramatically. We're also in America finding that leadership skills are not in sufficient supply. We have a real serious crisis at leadership levels. The question that was first posed, what do we do with top management? That's where we've got to get the thought process. What Texada does, what Matt is doing with all of the enterprise software packages, they're all trying to do the same thing, but the customer's not been asked what they want.
Thank you, Ron. It was a real pleasure to have you as a guest today, and Matt, of course, as well. And I just want to thank everyone for joining us today and taking the time out of your day. It was so great to have everyone, our customers, our partners, and also all the new faces